A Crime Through Time by Amelia Blackwell. Read by Polly Edsell. Miss Darcy Investigates A Crime Through Time by Amelia Blackwell. How wonderful, how very wonderful the operations of time and the changes of the human mind. Jane Austen. For Miss A. and the other Miss A. Chapter 1. The Danger Beckons. It was a path she had taken many times, for she spent the chief part of every afternoon walking in the grounds, and yet still Georgiana's heart leapt as she left the neat lawns about the house and strode towards the dark expanse of the wood. This was a wilderness in which she could breathe. She could sketch or write without being observed by the odious Mrs. Annesley, who never went an hour without remarking upon her deficiencies, or implying that she would soon receive a marriage proposal from Baron John de Halliwell. Mrs. Annesley paid no heed to Georgiana's conviction that the Baron cared only for her fortune, or that she felt nothing but alarm in his presence, and could only be as civil as his bad breath would allow. Mrs. Annesley thought solely of carriages, and an income of 25,000 a year. She had not yet forgiven Georgiana for refusing Sir William Popham Bonham, despite the fact that he was past 40 and complained of the rheumatism. Georgiana knew that she must one day consent to marry, but the idea of doing so at 20, or even 21, dismayed her beyond words. In the woods, she could dance to the melody of the wind in the leaves, and she could wet her feet in the stream on a warm day, and watch the dragonflies dart about their business, free and unencumbered. There was no other place where she could be alone without risk of intrusion, except beneath the canopy of those trees. She might have been a sprite of the air, for all the lightness that she felt when she was alone there. There was one part of the wood, however, into which she almost never ventured. Here the oaks were stunted, twisted into strange shapes that made them appear not as trees at all, but something else, something with their own minds. Hoary with a strange moss that grew like horsehair along their trunks and branches, these gnarled creatures flitted through her dreams as spectres. Perhaps it was childish fancy on her part, but the trees were so old there, so disfigured, that when she beheld them, she could not help but be afraid. It was said in local lore to be where ancient folk had held their forums, where they had hanged their guilty and made their blood sacrifices, and as such it was a place where magic might happen in the right confluence of weather and words. Even though her brother assured her that this was no more than ignorant country superstition, Georgiana felt the place retained an air of something evil, and she shrank away from it. On this day, however, mere hours before her most cherished confidante Anne was due to arrive from Rosings, Georgiana felt braver than she was accustomed, and when she heard the sound that she would come to know so well in the time ahead, she could not ignore it. She stopped, she turned, and she walked straight towards the danger. Chapter 2. A Chime Without Reason or Rhyme. The noise was rhythmic, almost mechanical in nature, something like the chime of a clock, but more insistent. Georgiana had never before heard such a sound. Strong was the impulse to flee, but her curiosity was stronger. She looked about her for the creature or object that could be responsible for this clamour, and was drawn towards a particularly ugly oak, whose branches looked so entirely like human arms that Georgiana felt a strong compulsion to close her eyes. Withstanding this temptation, she peered into the forked fingers and saw there a polished black rectangle constructed of a strange material that shone with a peculiar green glow. Against every notion of self-preservation, she reached for the object.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?